Thank you so much to Lisa Murphy of Houlihan Lawrence for sponsoring Ryemarkable Moms. Hi guys, and welcome to Ryemarkable Moms. I'm Liz Woods. Today I talk with the remarkable Ann Heekin. Ann is the mom of the fabulous Jessie Heekin. She is the executive director at the Don Bosco Center in Port Chester, and she's been volunteering there for over 20 years. What I love getting to learn most about Ann is how her life story has really come full circle. Ann lost her mom at a very young age, and she shares her firsthand experience of how extended family, and sometimes even a complete stranger, can greatly impact the life of a child. I hope you enjoy her story as much as I do. Okay, here we go. Hi guys, I'm here today with Ann. Thank you so much for having me today, Ann.
Thank you, Liz.
So in my last interview, I spoke with Marilyn Jackson, and she was a mom who grew up here in Rye. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up?
So I was born in New York City at St. Vincent's Hospital, but very quickly my family moved to Brooklyn, which is where my grandparents lived. I really spent the next 15 years there before, going off to college. So it's really home.
Yeah, and what was your childhood like?
Well, it was mixed. I mean, I had grandparents on both sides of the family, and I had a very beautiful mother who died very tragically when I was 8 years old. And my brother and sister, we were 1 year apart, so 7 and 6. Wow. So that was obviously a disruption in our lives. And again, the having grandparents nearby made it possible to, kind of everybody sharing and taking care of us. But it was a, very difficult time for all of us and for a long time.
Right. So 8 years old is very young to lose your mom. What do you have any memories of her? What's your favorite memory?
So I have fabulous memories of her, and the most clear memory I have is my work as a young child. I did a lot of modeling, and I did commercials. I was the Ivory Snow Baby when I was, under a year old.
So cool.
And my mother was also a performer. She was a singer and piano player, and at least before we were born was performing. So we had a lot of time on the trains. She holding on to the
strap.
The strap, thank you, and me holding on to her, and just running around the city, going to auditions, and so those are very clear memories for me.
Wow, that's amazing,
and I'm very grateful to have that.
And now you are the executive director at Don Bosco Center in Port Chester.
I am.
How did you get that role, or how did you get started there? You've been there for 20 years?
I've been there for 20 years.
Gosh.
I was there in the beginning as a volunteer, and I have a story that's a true story. It was like my first day as a volunteer at Don Bosco, and I was in the soup kitchen space, and I was asked to go to Home Depot to get some big bins to keep the food stored in. And of course, I'm like, yes, absolutely, can do that. Meanwhile, had I ever been in Home Depot? Absolutely not. I knew where it was. I just had not stepped inside the doors, and eventually found my way around. Got as many bins as I could get into the cart, and then when I got to my sort of mini SUV, I realized there was no way all of that was going in that.
Yes.
So. Somebody next, I heard a voice saying, "Are you okay?" And it was a contractor who had like this huge van. And I told him, and he said, "Look, I'll put them in my truck, and I know where Don Bosco is, so follow me." And I'm thinking, thank you, God. And I'm following him, and I start to pull in because we're at Don Bosco, and he keeps going.
No.
And I think, oh my God, I've just been ripped off, and how am I going to tell? It was a nun. How am I going to go tell the sister that I've lost all the money?
Your first day.
It was my first day on the job, right? First day.
Oh my gosh.
I go in, and she's like, I said, "Sister, I'm not sure how this happened." And all of a sudden I see a smile on her face, and she sort of turns me around, and this contractor was standing there. In other words, he overshot
my
the location and realized it and came back. And
Aw.
so I think,
awesome.
that was just that was the beginning. I guess maybe that was a sign that, this was a place that I was meant to be.
Yeah. And did you have a career before?
I did. I had a long career in the advertising agency. I worked for J. Walter Thompson right out of college. James Patterson, the author, famous James Patterson, was my creative director.
Wow.
So I worked with the best, and loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
And so how did you end up at Don Bosco?
Well, when my son was born and we were, moved in here to Rye, and my husband was, leading a company in the city, it was clear that one of us had to slow down. Or why do we have this baby? If no one's going to be around.
Right.
So I did, and I quickly found another line of work up here, and I became I was working in religious education at Resurrection Church, and that was perfect because it was 5 minutes away. The schedule was flexible, and I did that for many years, and then because of my work in religious ed, I started to think, well, maybe I need to go back to school. I wanted to learn more about Scripture and things that we were teaching, and I went down to Fordham and I said, look, I don't want to be I want to be here for two classes a semester. I'm not interested in a degree, and then 5 years later, I graduated with my PhD in religious studies.
No
so
way.
clearly, they had the better half of me. But one thing took on, things just sort of became so interesting to me, and the more I was teaching at Res, the more I realized I wanted to know more in order to be able to explain things better. So that just kind of took me clearly on another track, and my next job after Resurrection, I began teaching at Sacred Heart University in Connecticut in the Religious Studies department. Loved it, and with teaching, particularly at college level, you can pretty much figure your schedule out if you're still picking up children after school.
It's flexible.
So it is flexible, and so I was able to sustain that. And then eventually there was an opening at Iona College, which of course is a lot closer, and I made that transition. I was there full time for a number of years, and then all the while involved at Don Bosco. At that point, I was asked on the board of directors, and the day came, and I was teaching full time when the director of the center was being reassigned, and they came and asked me, would I consider taking on the job as executive director. And I thought,
so you don't have too much on your plate?
No. Well, I switched things around, so I went part-time at Iona.
Okay.
Full-time at
Sounds like a lot.
Don Bosco. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I have more hours in my day than most people. Yeah. I don't usually tell
You're
that.
lucky,
I was
yes,
given
yeah.
a couple of extra hours, and I used
How
them
do you do
well.
it?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's all close, and
Yeah. Right.
somehow we
Right,
all
you're
do it.
passionate
We all
about it.
do
It's
it.
great, yeah.
Right, you're passionate about whatever it is,
Yeah.
and your children and your spouse and your friends, and
Right. That's great.
you get it done.
Wow.
You get it done.
So, Anne, what is the story of Don Bosco? Was he a real person, or?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Very real, very young when he experienced sort of a religious calling to serve the homeless youth of his time in Turin, Italy. And it all began with a dream, right? He, in a dream, he experienced himself being called, by God to go out and serve and better the lives of homeless boys that were, it was very, very much a problem in Turin, Italy. We had the early rise of the Industrial Revolution at that time, and so parents on these farms who were not able to really support all of the children they had thought that if they sent them to the cities, they would get jobs and they would be taken care of. But of course, they were without any skills. They were young, very young men, and that's not what happened. Nobody was interested in hiring them. So his dream was to go in there and to organize them, bring them together, help to provide a safe space, access to food. And then he had this brilliant idea as part of this dream to look to place them in jobs with, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the local
Yeah, the
craftsperson, right? The local craftsperson, and that's what he did. And he placed hundreds of kids in these. You know, they now had a home.
Yeah.
And they had a little bit of income coming in, and he took care of educating them. Wow. Academically, and also with religious education. And many of those first, group that he worked with, when he started the order, the Salesians of Don Bosco, became his first priests.
Wow.
His first seminarians, and then his first priests.
Wow. And are there the location that you're at is in
Yes.
Portchester, and then.
Right, and we are all around the world. We're all around the United States, all around the world. There's a huge missionary piece of the work of Don Bosco,
That's
in
neat.
developing countries and so forth. So in some places, they're still doing that original work, of helping the poor. And it's true in Portchester too. I mean, they tend to go into, like places that are, where there's significant poverty and where children are at risk. And build up those communities with schools and with churches and athletics and Boys and Girls Club types of settings.
And just with one person's idea.
One person.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching today. If you have an idea for a collaboration, or if you'd like to work on social media with me, I'd love to hear from you. Email me. I'm at lizwoods@ryemarkablemoms.com. And I'll see you guys soon.